Uber taxi drivers of Reddit, what is your best NSW story so far? Someone crap in my car. It looked exactly like the poop emoji. She did it through her skirt right as she was leaving the car. I didn't know at first. I drove around and kept spraying Febreze back there wondering why this smell won't go away. Then I looked back and saw she left me a farting gift. I'd be more upset, but damn it, that woman eats her fiber and it was a perfect turd. I respected that, but still charged her a $150 cleaning fee. I have bleach and sanitizer and paper towels for exactly this occasion. That is truly disgusting, and I can't imagine someone this gross. Picked up an Irish couple at a concert. The drive was an hour away. Looked back to merge into traffic and women was going to town giving her man a BJ. I turned up the music and just let them do their thing. Another ride picked up a super drunk woman. She was getting frisky, placing her hand on my leg as I drove. Made up an excuse that I had to shift. Standard. When we got to her place she asked, well, are you coming up? I told her I was in a committed relationship. She says so? Told her I really can't. Just then I got a ping for another trip and that was that. She was beautiful though. Picked up an Uber pool once. The first was a woman. The next stop was a man. Heard them chatting, laughing. Then it got quiet, turned around and they were making out. Guy's stop was first. The woman got out with him. Reading the comments, I realized being hit on as a driver is a thing. I drove for one freaking weekend for Uber in Concord, NH. Pick up downtown Concord by State Capitol and the destination is not far away. We set off and I should have known by the rancid smell this clown has either finger banged his crappy butthole or he green apple splattered his pants. It was my third fare but I kept going. No one at destination wanted me to bring him to Keene, NH, about 90 meters away. Told him no. Refused to get out. I called PD. PD came there and immediately tased him for spitting at me and cop. He exploded with crap. Crap everywhere. He was in the backseat of my Jeep and somehow crap was in my front seat. I called my wife. Had it towed to a dealership. I back and forthed with Uber for almost a week before they finally relented to replace my carpet and seats because that poo and smell wasn't coming out. Quit Uber. Frick rideshare. People imagine the future of driverless ride sharing will be a Tesla while the nature of humans dictates that your driverless ride share will be like a bathtub with a plastic seat. Humans are dirty. Ex-Uber driver here. Picked up 3 girls from the airport. They just came in from Miami. They were all originally from Peru and ranging from speaks English well, spoke half English to spoke almost zero English. They ask for my personal cell number so they can have me drive them places all weekend. I drive them to a couple places on Friday and Saturday, ending with driving them all to the wedding they had traveled for. On their way out of my car, the one who speaks English the best tells me that the one who spoke almost zero English thinks I'm really hot. I'm average to above average on a good day. I pick them up from the wedding reception a few hours later and bring them back to their Airbnb. The one who speaks zero English who thinks I'm hot hands me her phone from the back with Google Translate open and it says, want to get a drink? I say yes. She moves to the front seat and we keep handing the phone back and forth, speaking to each other, pick up a bottle of wine and head back to my place. One thing leads to another. We have this amazing connection, and it leads to us hooking up. I drive her back to her friends, still talking via Google Translate. She kisses me goodbye. TL. DR. Pick up girls from Peru through Uber. End up hooking up with one of them only communicating through Google Translate. The fact that's even possible nowadays is really outstanding, to be honest. Uber Lyft driver here. Mostly it's horrid, rancid, nasty butt BO and sweat stained butt cracks on my seats pee me off. I pick up some crusty people who smell like they not only haven't showered in 4 years but also regularly masturbate while crapping and skip wiping. A mix of the sex soda and butt glands with some wafting in of sickly uric acid. I have a good sense of smell and I freaking hate it. That was very descriptive. I'm waiting for takeout. I was a taxi driver for 4 years while studying at the university. I'll never forget this guy. I drove home during a night shift. In Germany it's common to have a chat with the cab driver. Sometimes customers even tell you really private crap. And this guy seemed completely normal to me. When we arrived at his house he asked me if I would like to have my dong sucked by him for 20 euros. And just to make it clear, That wasn't his price. He wanted to pay me 20 euros to suck my dong. Didn't saw that one coming. I refused respectfully. As an Uber driver, grown man with a Lord Farquaad haircut. As an Uber passenger, a driver who hooked up with female passengers regularly, claimed that having "I want to have as many kids as possible" in his driver bio turned women on to no end. As a dude with long hair who's been told I look a bit like Lord Farquaad, I'm freaking shaking right now. Not me, but was asking my Phil this very question. He drives for Lyft. He told me that one time he was driving this nice young lady and 3 men to one destination, and being the sweet little retired Marine he is, he quietly asked her if she wanted a different location, or if she was okay. Her response is, "Oh yeah, I'll be fine, I have plenty of condoms." I just can't imagine somebody saying that to my Phil. This actually made me laugh out loud. I used to drive for Lyft and Dooba for a couple of years. I picked a guy up from the club one Saturday night. He sat up front, which I had never had a problem with before. I kind of appreciated it most of the time because it's a green light to be friendly and make conversation. As soon as we get going, it became clear that this guy was wasted, frisky, and interested in me. He kept telling me that I was so nice and touching my arm for no reason. Made me pretty uncomfortable, but I figured it'd be over in a couple minutes, so I just tried to be polite while hinting that I wasn't into it. We pulled up in his driveway and he told me that if I went into his house he had a big tip that he wanted to give me. Being a straight married man, I politely stated that I didn't need a tip and I'd like to be on my way to the next rider. He asked for a hug. I said no thanks. He said just a quick hug and I'll get out of your hair. I thought, whatever makes this end sooner. So I reluctantly allow this strange man to hug me. Big mistake, I know. He makes it last too long, and as soon as I'm really starting to push him away he kissed me on the neck. At that point I opened his door for him from the driver's seat and shoved him out the passenger side onto his butt in his driveway. I still shudder thinking about what would have happened if I didn't outweigh him by probably 75 pounds. Or if he would have had a weapon or something. Just that one neck kiss made me feel so violated. I called it quits for the night and took a very long shower. I felt like I could feel his lips on my neck for the rest of the night. It felt filthy. I can't imagine what a real sexual assault would make a person feel like, but I feel like that night gave me just the slightest hint, and it felt horrific. That is sexual assault, my dude. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Friday night about midnight I had a trip with 4 middle-aged women. Halfway through the trip one starts talking about how they like double fisting and how even they've never cheated on their husband of 20 plus years they sure considered it with this guy named Johnny whoever the frick he was, lol. Then started talking about doing edibles and squirting, lol. It was my first time ever working past 9 PM. 27 years of driving taxi. I have seen it all, but the one incident that really shook me up was when a 13-year-old boy I was driving home from the mall offered me a BJ. Wasn't expecting that one. I have a worst NFSW passenger story. My friend recently told me about a woman in her social circle who was sexually assaulted on a Lyft trip in the US. Pacific Northwest region. This story is definitely a bit out there and made me rethink how to be safer using rideshare apps. So she got a lift home from a networking event and woke up the next morning in her own bed, sore, bruised, and with zero recollection of her evening after getting into the lift. Disoriented and confused, she tried to piece together events of the night before. She looked at her Lyft ride and saw she had been charged a couple of $100 for her ride, which should have only cost $20 or so. She called Lyft and asked about the charges. They explained it was so high because her trip had taken her on multiple stops and gone out of state. She was super confused and started to freak out as she had no recollection of the last night. She called a friend who took her to the hospital and she had a rape kit done. It tested positive for semen. She went to the police and Lyft. The Lyft driver was banned from the app but disappeared soon after, so police couldn't make an arrest. She hired a pie who suggested they reenact the trip she took, according to the records Lyft had of her multi-state trip. Apparently, this triggered her memory and allowed her to remember being drugged and violently gang raped by multiple groups of men and her driver repeatedly. To this day the driver hasn't been caught and Lyft did little but refund her for the ride. I was pretty shocked and horrified by this story. I ride Lyft and Dooba pretty regularly. Going forward, I will not accept food or drink that some drivers offer, no matter the gender of the driver. You never know if they've tampered with the food. You can easily make things look sealed, or if they're working a side gig at the same time. Really freaking scary how far this can go. Wow, this is scary. Thanks for sharing. I've never thought twice about accepting the bottles of water that some drivers provide. Of course I check that they are sealed bottles, but that doesn't guarantee no tampering. On my first trip as a driver, the passenger was going to a hotel near our local airport. He asked if we could make a stop on the way, which I did. The stop ended up being to get some money from his girlfriend in a trailer park. When we were pulling up to the hotel, he said to stop before going into the parking lot. He pulled out his phone and showed me a picture of a naked woman. Then he told me, I'm meeting this girl from Backpigeon there. I don't want you getting in trouble in case the cops show up, so I'll get out here. Tip me $20 in cash. Well, I am not a driver but a rider from Pakistan. This one time I booked my Uber, sat in it, and the driver started the ride. I sat on the passenger seat, since it is quite normal here to sit alongside driver. So he started the ride, and just 10 minutes into the ride, his phone rang. He picked up and started talking in code language. I grew suspicious, but soon he started to yell and cry, and started saying the person had died. I hit him and he died. No one was there, so picked him up and put him into the backseat of the car. I looked back and holy crap, there was actually a guy lying, covered in some white sheet with stains of fresh blood all over, on the back seat. I started feeling very shaky, trembling all over. I asked him to stop in a really shaky voice, and he said he cannot do that. He will do it in some area where he will not be seen. I totally panicked and started to take control of the wheel to push him to stop. After few seconds of resistance, he stopped the car and started laughing, and said, "Sir, it was a prank. We are YouTubers and we do pranks. Man, frick with your pranks." I drove for Lyft for a short period of time. A lady requested a ride, but when I pick her up there's a man with her as well. She tells me I need to drop her off first, then take him to his house. Okay, that's fine. I drop her off and then the dude gets weird. He sat in the middle of the backseat and stuck his face up right beside mine. He noticed that I had several piercings and proceeded to ask me if I had my P&T pierced too. He made vulgar comments and didn't want to get out of the car when I got to his place. I got out of there so fast and immediately quit Lyft. Not worth it at all. Creeper much. A bit late to the party, but let's go. Picked up two dudes at some house party. They keep talking about how much amphetamines were at that party. They are both thirsty as frick, and one of them just grabs my water bottle and downs it all in one big swig. They are both also frisky as frick, and keep asking where the good after parties with girls are. Now, I know exactly where these parties are. I have been dropping people off all night, but I can't tell that to these high morons. So I drive them around on their instruction, looking for a party they can get into. I am supposed to wait while they go inside, in case they want to try someplace else. I'm not interested in waiting with the meter running. There is a fair chance these morons won't come out and pay, so we pay off the fare and start a new fare when they change their mind about this party. We hit up several parties this way, cashing out fares multiple times before these morons find a party that meet their specifications. After all is said and done, they paid about $120 1,100 NOK, to find a crappy party at 3 AM and drink my fucking water bottle. We had a 20-something girl who would call for a cab every Sunday night around 2 AM to have beer sent to her house, and whichever driver that brought the beer would receive a BJ. We could all hear everything the dispatcher said to any driver, but not what the driver said in response. When he told us she called, he'd ask who wanted the run. It took about 1 microsecond for him to say, "Okay, you got the job." I told the story to the woman I was living with at the time, and she didn't find it as amusing as I did. The next thing I know, I'm working days. The joke was on her though. That lady called in the daytime too, almost entirely to get rides to the jail to visit boyfriends. All the guys she knew either were currently in jail or possibly in jail because of her. I brought her back home one day and she said the money is in the house. I followed her to the front door but didn't cross the doorway. We were warned to avoid going into girls' homes. While standing there she grabs a stack of Polaroids of her having sex with various guys from the counter and tells me to look them over and went into another room to get the money. I do. There are every possible positions and some had more than one guy involved. While doing this she comes back wearing just panties and snuggles up under my arm. She give me a brief description of how each encounter was for her. This guy was huge, these guys were brothers and so on. I panic and bolt back to my cab. She follows and says I forgot the fare. She pays and I leave. I take her to various places over the next year about a dozen times. And no, my picture is not in that pile. BTW, for some reason this is a story I never told my girlfriend. I was driving an Uber pool. Stoned guy in the backseat I can see. We pull in to pick up this girl, wearing a tiny black dress, boobs practically hanging out. She says to me, "Hey, do you mind if I get changed?" I say no. I ask the stoner, he just giggles. Couple seconds pass and I hear him say that they are, so I assume the girls were out. Then he starts laughing constantly until I drop him off. I can't see this girl at all as she is directly behind me. No idea what's going on. We talk for a minute and she mentions her parents can't know she was out. It was 3 AM. So I pull up to her house and she gets out, wearing a burqa. Wait, what? My father is taxi driver. He told me a story. One time he met a couple who was very loudly speaking about swing club visit. After this story I've understood that I will not to be a taxi driver. Son, don't ever be a taxi driver. People talk about this depraved stuff in the back of your cab and they never give you an address. Repost of one of my previous comments. Probably not that bad compared to other stories but is a memorable one for me. I was driving these three larger unattractive women, probably late 20s, back from a house party and they began talking about problems they've encountered while partying and clubbing. They speak as if they get hit on and get with a lot of guys. Doubtful. One woman starts to brag how when she was at a party some guy slipped something in her drink and that it has happened before, which begins a dong measuring contest. One of the other women pipes up and says how she's been drugged several times before at parties and how men only want one thing from her. The other woman chimes in and says how she's been drugged even more times and has been sent to the hospital for it a couple of times. They were all saying these things in such a proud, bragging manner which I just thought was really messed up. TLDR. These three larger women were bragging and trying to one-up each other about how they've been roofied. I've seen more than one very unattractive, like morbidly obese, or what the majority of people would call unattractive, woman's phone blowing up after dark with guy after guy looking for booty calls, so all their stories may very well be legit. Not really NSW, but this was a pretty funny story I got told years ago from the daughter of a guy that owned and operated a local taxi service in my town in the early 90s. Medium-sized town with a small rinky-dink airport. A taxi is scheduled to pick up a guy at the airport after his evening flight arrives. A driver is dispatched to pick him up and take him to his hotel. This particular driver had a pretty wild stutter. As luck would have it, so did the guy he was meant to pick up. Luggage in the trunk. Guy gets in back. They start the standard dialogue and all heck breaks loose. Each one thought the other was mocking them and it resulted in a winter evening fist fight at the front entrance to the airport. After everything calmed down and figured out, the two of them shared a pretty great laugh over it and nothing bad came of it. I had no idea it was happening. Giving a nice couple a ride home from the bars. He spoke to me pretty much the entire ride. The next morning I downloaded the video to my computer and as per usual I peek at a quick video to make sure the camera is working okay and I randomly picked that particular ride. Dude was fingering his girl the whole ride, literally from the moment they got until the moment he licked his fingers and got out. I figured out who they were. She a teacher, he a CPA. So I look further and I find a woman giving her man a handy. This time she talked the whole ride and he said nothing. Video shows the jacking motion by her and the head back by him. She has this crap eating grin on her face the whole ride and he is staring at the ceiling. A girl I picked with her friends was pretty handsy with me and her friends found it funny. I stopped at a liquor store to let them pick up booze for the after party. While they were gone the girl propositioned me to pay her $600 a month to have sex with her as often as I like. Gave me some real dirty examples of what she do. She was a single mom and just need a little extra to get through life. She was really beautiful physically and I almost regret not taking her up on that offer. I think about her from time to time and hope she's in a better place. It all started when it was around 11 AM on a Friday. I picked up this girl and her mate. They seemed a bit drunk but they still were social and pretty with it. However, around 10 minutes in on their 1-hour trip I heard some wet, moist noises in the back. Me being me very nosy, I turned around pretending to check something. I noticed the girl had her hand down her skirt. I didn't say anything and just carries on the night until I dropped them off. Peas. I did notice a small wet patch. Rode a pedicab in Chicago for 4 years. So much crazy crap. Highlights are: girl who bitched about cyclist all the way to her place then asked if I wanted to come up. The over 50 lady who had her hand between my butt and the seat for the whole ride. Multiple couples fight, like screaming at each other. The girl who was mad at her boyfriend so she kicked his motorcycle over in the driveway and climbed into the house through the window. The old man who said as he got off the cab, I had an accident on your seat, here is an extra $20. The girl who was S-faced having a bachelorette party talking about how she promised her boyfriend she was going to be good, then got out of the cab with her skirt up so high in the back you could see her underwear. The cops I gave a ride to who told me they were cops, they offered me some coke. So many I probably forgot. The cops I gave a ride to who told me they were cops, they offered me some coke. Sting operation of the century. Not a taxi or Uber driver, but I suppose I can contribute as I was one of those NSW passengers. It was at the start of the relationship with my ex and we just had a really fun date and decided going back to my place was a good idea, so we got a taxi. In the taxi one thing led to another and she started giving me a BJ on the back seat. The driver didn't say anything, but when he dropped us off he was smirking at me and told me to have a good night and to sleep well, but in a funny voice, then started laughing. Kind of a reverse story here. My wife and I get pick up by the airport shuttle at 0:30 in the morning to catch a flight. Driver is a mature woman. Pleasant and far too chatty for us at that hour, but we make small talk for part of the ride. Topic turns to kids. We both have adult children. Then she gets very animated, repeatedly states that her kids never visit unannounced anymore, because they're likely gonna find me and their father butt naked if they do. 8 to 10 minutes of her describing the scene the kids would find her in, laughing and suggesting we do the same. Awkward, but still got a tip. Entertaining at least. Very late to the party, but I drove for Lyft and Dooba in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, with the Baltimore area being home turf. I did it for a couple years. I have a couple of stories. First, I had a trip late at night down near downtown DC, at a hotel. I arrived there and was witness to a soldier getting kicked out of the hotel. He kept shouting he didn't take anything. I sat there for my allotted 5 minutes as I thought I was waiting for my passenger. Come to find out it was the drunken soldier. I found out by calling my passenger when my 5 minutes were up, asking if he needed me to wait. He then tells me he was the one kicked off the property and was waiting on the sidewalk near the exit. So I drive up to him and get him loaded. He jumps into the front seat, which I encourage with passengers from time to time so I didn't feel so much like a chauffeur. I find out he is going to the far side of Alexandria, which got me in good spirits due to the fare being higher in DC. So I confirmed the address and off we went. This guy starting spouting anti-government and police propaganda at me and was trying to convince me to be a libertarian. I chuckled at him a couple times, but I kept him talking so he wouldn't risk doing something else. Everything was fine until we got to his destination. He grabbed my head, pulled me towards him, then suddenly kissed my forehead, leaving me freaked out with SHJT on my pants as I thought I was about to get my head snapped off. Second happened shortly after I started doing Uber and Uber Eats. So one night dang near midnight I just had dropped a passenger in West Baltimore when I got an Uber Eats request. I drive to the location to pick up the food for the customer when as soon as I walked in I had someone come up behind me with a knife, now mugging me. He immediately, after patting me down for weapons and money, started forcing me to help him rob the place. He had me at knife point when he demanded that I call out to the people behind the bulletproof glass and counter to come back up, with no success. He then forced me to force open a thin screen door that gave him access to the register. Once there he took the money and my wallet. Throughout this whole thing he tried stabbing me 8 times, focused on the back of my right leg, 2 above the knee, 3 times below my wallet and 3 exactly where my wallet was while it was still there. He booked it with the money, leaving me there to potentially bleed to death. Called the cops since no one else was gonna and had an amazing officer show up. He helped me to the ambulance, made sure I had my car keys, followed me to the hospital, stayed with me the 3.5 hours while I got stitches, offered me a ride back to my car which I found out died due to the blinkers on the entire time I was away, and he even gave me a jump start so I could get home. All Uber did was apologize to me, nothing else. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.